We become not a melting pot but a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different yearnings, different hopes, different dreams. We must adjust to changing times and still hold to unchanging principles. I'll never tell a lie. I'll never make a misleading statement. I'll never betray the confidence that any of you had in me. And I'll never avoid a controversial issue. If you're totally illiterate and living on $1 a day, the benefits of globalization never come to you. Globalization, as defined by rich people like us, is a very nice thing. You are talking about the internet, you are talking about cell phones, you are talking about computers. This doesn't affect 2/3 of the people of the world. I've looked on many women with lust. I've committed adultery in my heart many times. God knows I will do this and forgives me. You can do what you have to do, and sometimes you can do it even better than you think you can. War may sometimes be a necessary evil. But no matter how necessary, it is always an evil, never a good. We will not learn how to live together in peace by killing each other's children. Human rights is the soul of our foreign policy, because human rights is the very soul of our sense of nationhood. Whatever starts in California unfortunately has an inclination to spread. The best way to enhance freedom in other lands is to demonstrate here that our democratic system is worthy of emulation. When I was in the White House, I was confronted with the challenge of the Cold War. Both the Soviet Union and I had 30,000 nuclear weapons that could destroy the entire Earth, and I had to maintain the peace. America did not invent human rights. In a very real sense, human rights invented America. I have often wanted to drown my troubles, but I can't get my wife to go swimming. The experience of democracy is like the experience of life itself, always changing, infinite in its variety, sometimes turbulent, and all the more valuable for having been tested by adversity. We will not learn how to live together in peace by killing each other's children. We've become, now, an oligarchy instead of a democracy. I think that's been the worst damage to the basic moral and ethical standards to the American political system that I've ever seen in my life. There's a common perception among college administrators that they should conceal the high level of sexual assaults that take place on their campuses because it would bring discredit to the university, bring them a bad name if it was publicized. The awareness that health is dependent upon habits that we control makes us the first generation in history that to a large extent determines its own destiny. Like music and art, love of nature is a common language that can transcend political or social boundaries. It's not necessary to fear the prospect of failure but to be determined not to fail. Unless both sides win, no agreement can be permanent. There should be an honest attempt at the reconciliation of differences before resorting to combat. Aggression unopposed becomes a contagious disease. We should live our lives as though Christ were coming this afternoon. You cannot divorce religious belief and public service. I've never detected any conflict between God's will and my political duty. If you violate one, you violate the other. Testing oneself is best when done alone. Well, I had been a peanut farmer. I had, who was the first president, Democratic president I ever met. Bill Clinton. I say to you quite frankly that the time for racial discrimination is over. It is good to realize that if love and peace can prevail on earth, and if we can teach our children to honor nature's gifts, the joys and beauties of the outdoors will be here forever. For this generation, ours, life is nuclear survival, liberty is human rights, the pursuit of happiness is a planet whose resources are devoted to the physical and spiritual nourishment of its inhabitants. When I was elected president, nobody asked me to negotiate between Israel and Egypt. It was not even a question raised in my campaign. But I felt that one of the reasons that I was elected president was to try to bring peace to the Holy Land. My understanding of racial discrimination as a child was highly distorted because the most prominent man in archery was an African American bishop. When he came home from up north, where he was in charge of AME churches in 5 states, it was front-page news. He was the most successful man in my life. There's no way now for you to get a Democratic or Republican nomination without being able to raise $200 or $300 million or more. I would not be inclined to do that, and I would not be capable of doing it. We cannot be both the world's leading champion of peace and the world's leading supplier of the weapons of war. A fundamentalist can't bring himself or herself to negotiate with people who disagree with them because the negotiating process itself is an indication of implied equality. I have been very interested and intrigued and congratulatory toward President Bush and his paintings. Republicans are men of narrow vision, who are afraid of the future. If you fear making anyone mad, then you ultimately probe for the lowest common denominator of human achievement. My position has always been, along with many other people, that any differences be resolved in a non-violent way. In religious and in secular affairs, the more fervent beliefs attract followers. We must make it clear that a platform of, "I hate gay men and women," is not a way to become President of the United States. I don't claim to be knowledgeable about theology. Most of my knowledge comes out of my experience and the lessons in the Bible. I personally have always been in favor of people who are gay being permitted to marry legally, and I still feel that way. What has happened at Guantanamo Bay does not represent the will of the American people. I'm embarrassed about it. I think it's wrong. I think it does give terrorists an unwarranted excuse to use the despicable means to hurt innocent people. Government is a contrivance of human wisdom to provide for human wants. People have the right to expect that these wants will be provided for by this wisdom. I think I was identified as a failed president because I wasn't re-elected. Too many of us now tend to worship self-indulgence and consumption. Which quotation do you like the most? Don't forget to subscribe.